Times in the last year, month, week, do you find yourself discussing the economy? Boy, I know it is certainly not one of my favorite topics, but it's something that seems to come up at every corner. So I figured it was time to have a discussion about what God really says about our economy. In fact, what does the Almighty God really say about the almighty dollar? Well, in order to do that today, I have brought in Chad Hovind, who is the senior pastor of Horizon Community Church here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And he has recently taught a whole series on God's thoughts on the economy, on the dollar, on where we're at today. And we are here to get the best pieces from that. So, Chad, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here. And, a lot of people don't like the theory of economics, but they do care about why is my house price going down and why can't I buy as much as I used to? And I'd like to be more generous than I can right now. So the practical implications people do care about, and God speaks a lot of wisdom into how to speak good work ethics into our kids, how to manage our money in a way that allows us to not only provide for our own needs, but bless others, because there's a lot of people in need, especially in this economy, that we have the privilege and joy of being able to impact if we're managing ourselves and our own life according to God's principles.
That's so well said. You're right. I think that word economy or economics has always been intimidating to me, but I love how you're putting it, Chad. Hey, just the common everyday, how to save money, how to manage, how to lower your mortgage, how to not have a car payment, how to plan, and how to know that.
Well, money matters. And, for me as a pastor, I get to see the pluses and the minuses of folks who are managing with God's principles are often filled with joy of generosity. They've got a lot more margin in their life, a lot less stress in their marriage. And on the other side, I see folks who have a lot of debt load. They've got a lot of stress. They aren't experiencing freedom. We talk in Godonomics that God wants us to experience liberty, prosperity, and generosity. And that liberty is not just external liberty, but internal liberty as well when we're using our money rather than our money using us.
Yeah. This idea of the economy and what the Almighty says about our dollar. There are so many areas to learn, and certainly as a pastor that you teach on in the Bible. Why did you particularly, Chad, find this so important to share this and to really dive into this?
Well, I think a variety of reasons. One, everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
So there was a felt need of, well, what does God say about these kind of things, like work ethic, profit, capitalism, socialism? What are those things? Growing up, you get this idea that capitalism is about greed, it's bad, and socialism is about being nice to others, and it's good. And as you begin to research, you find that capitalism is built on three basic ideas, one which is incentive, the second one which is freedom, and the third one is, I think, very important, and what's important about it is its property rights. And God, when he was teaching people how to be free in Exodus, he said, you need to have rights to your property. He said, do not steal somebody else's horse, somebody else's house, which is to say they own that. So you will own things and other people will own things, and that will give you the incentive to be free because you'll work your own farm, you'll work your own job, and you'll get what it says in Proverbs 31 is the fruit of your own labor. And that incentive is I want to work hard so I can get the fruit of my own labor, not only for myself, the personal incentive, but also to bless other people. And I saw that was so important because as a father, I've got two kids. I'm a balloonist and juggler, and we took our kids down, and we performed at Newport and the Levee here in Cincinnati. And so
wow, what a guy, a balloonist, a juggler, a pastor, creator of Godonomics. These things don't end, Chad. I'm learning all sorts of things about you. That's great.
Well, that's why I said it's practical, because we're starting our own little business, so we're making balloon animals, and so my son's 10, my daughter's 12, and she's making all kinds of balloon animals. I'm doing a little magic show to get a crowd, and as we get done, we make $33 for those 2 hours. I'm going to keep my day job, but they're thrilled. They've made this money. And I said, how should we divide up our earnings? $33. And they said, well, let's pay each other equally. We'll each take $11. I said, well, no. Not equally, fairly. Fairly is, who put the investment, who put the time in? And my daughter turned and said, well, Javen goofed off half the time. Well, I'm not sure it's half the time, but you're right. He didn't put as much energy into it. And so what would be a fair payment for him? And I think this idea of paying everybody equally takes away incentive. And yet, at the end of the day, we talked about this, and I said, Javen, we're going to pay you $9. We're going to pay Sierra $11 and me $13. Well, little did they know that I had put $10 up for the balloons themselves and paid $3 for parking. So even though I made more, I actually paid it all out. But I was trying to teach them incentive, which is that there's incentive to working harder so you get to get the blessing of that, or like a proverb says, the fruit of your own labor.
Oh, how fun. It sounds like there's some great lessons going on in the Hovind household.
Yeah, we had a great time.
We had a great time. Awesome teachable moments. Now, In the scriptures, where did you find a lot of your material that really dove into God's thoughts about the almighty dollar and about our situation in our economy today?
Proverbs 31, which I mentioned already, but the property rights one comes from Exodus in the Ten Commandments, but it's reiterated even in Thessalonians, because he shows up and he says, hey, Christ might come at any moment, but keep in mind that while we're waiting for that, we should work, and we should work really, really hard and diligently and not be lazy. In fact, as he talked about that, he said, you want to eat your own bread. He said, even when we came to you, we didn't eat somebody else's bread. In other words, when somebody works and earns their own bread, it's their bread. And he says, we didn't want to be a burden to you. We want you and those busybodies among you who are lazy, people who could work, who aren't working, they need to go and work and get the pleasure of being used by God and using their gifts so they can eat their own bread. So this idea of property rights, that I have the rights to the incentive of what I've done, is very, very important. But Proverbs 31 is where I found myself, and of course you know that passage really well about the Proverbs 31 woman who is sort of inspiration to us on multiple levels, but actually plays out very specifically how economy works. God gives us a lot of detail in that passage. First thing it says is that she found a vineyard. She considered the vineyard. Well, why would she consider it? Well, she considered, is this a good investment? Is this going to produce? In other words, can I take this vineyard and produce enough crop that I will be able to make a profit?
No impulse buying. No impulse buying. No, it was on sale, so I went for it. No,
right.
No, this lady was diligent.
She was.
She was diligent. She sat back. She looked at it.
Yeah, and I think that first economics of whatever field you're in is, am I producing? Is this going to produce a profit? And it says she profited from it. Well, profits become like a bad word today. Oh, profit, those evil profits. And it's not at all the case the way the Bible, that's that incentive. Profit basically means I made more than it cost me to produce. Well, what's the alternative? Cost me more to produce it. Well, then I'm going out of business. I'm going bankrupt. So profit is a good thing. So she produces, she profits, and then she has savings. And savings are so important because, especially in a down economy, you don't know what's going to happen. The reality is that dishwashers break down, cars break down, they need more brakes, and if we don't have margins, savings in our life, which means we made more than it costs us to live, we're not going to have that safety net when it comes to difficult things. So she takes that savings, and I love it. She says she worked day and night, hard work ethic. She didn't eat of the bread of idleness, and she got to participate in the fruit of her own labor. Give her, it says, the fruit of her labor. Then she takes that savings, and she blesses others. It says that she extended her hand to the poor and to the needy. So she's giving. She also invested in another vineyard. She says, hey, I got enough money. I want to buy another vineyard, which provide more jobs. So she got to bless other people, not only who are buying her product, but also who are saying, wow, I get to work for you. So that's how job creation really occurs. Back during the agricultural time and even now, a company, a small business produces, they profit, they take the savings, and they have enough savings left over to then go and find another producing vineyard or widget or gadget. And that allows them then to give more to the poor. And you just see that in statistics all across the board, that Christians and conservatives are those who are the most generous statistically every time you look at it.
Oh, I love that. It certainly is a great passage, and it's encouraging to me, and I'm sure many of you ladies out there, that here this woman is a successful businesswoman. This woman is the one who's nurturing, who is caring for her family, and also sitting back and making decisions deliberately and being blessed with the responsibility of bringing other people into a more fullness of life and of the chance to be responsible themselves, which is pretty awesome. Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Life Coach Emily Bauman, and I am joined in the studios today with Chad Hovind, the senior pastor of Horizon Community Church here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we are discussing the economy, which all of us have been discussing for quite some time. But today, what is God saying about our economy? And one thing I love that you've shared today already, Chad, is this idea of incentive and working hard and being incentivized to go and work. And oftentimes, I know I'm not alone in this as a Christian, I get confused because there's kind of this mentality of, if I'm doing well, then I need to share with all those that aren't doing well. We all need to come to the trough, right, and eat from this. And many times that can feel like, there's a fine line there between helping someone and enabling another person. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's several thoughts on that. Back to that Thessalonians passage where he says you need to make sure you're eating your own bread, not be a busybody. You actually, from a psychological standpoint, you're enabling somebody and getting into a codependent relationship when you're keeping them from being able to go through the challenges. The challenges of life make us stronger. And when we're always rescuing somebody, I talk to a lot of folks at our church who have a alcoholic or a person with a gambling problem who's always coming to them and saying, will you bail me out, will you bail me out, will you bail me out? And if every time in the name of love you're bailing them out, you're actually keeping them from experiencing the joy of pain. What I mean by that is I
know, that stopped everyone in their tracks. The joy of pain. Wow, wait a minute.
I mean, when I bash my head into a wall, it should be painful.